This is Playmaker Agami back again with another deck profile. Today's deck profile shall be on CUBICS. I bought this off of a friend of mine, and then the rest of the cards I've kind of gotten. I'm still working on this. There is a bit of proxies, all of them in the spell, all of them in the main deck. Extra deck only has one proxy, but we'll get to that one later. But for right now, we're gonna go ahead and start the. We're gonna go ahead and get on with the profile. So, the main three cards you want to run in CUBICS are Vijam, the Cubic Seed. This card's a pretty good card. 0 attack and 0 defense. When this card, this card can't be destroyed by battle, and that's pretty good because you usually want to just, and if you have this card in first turn, you usually want to play it face down defense. And whenever a monster attacks into this card, it's not destroyed, and it is set in the spell or trap card zone, and whatever monster attacks it, you place a cubic counter on it. Cubic counters prevent the opponent's monster from attacking for the rest of the turn. In my opinion, I say cubic counters are actually the best counters out of the entire game, because they actually stop your opponent from doing things, and they can't really do anything, so it's pretty good when you take out their big beater. On to the next three off. You want to run 3 Duza, the Meteor Cubic Vessel. Only have 2. I'm still trying to get money for another one. But its effect is whenever it's normal or special summoned, you can activate this effect by pitching a cubic card from your deck to the grave. So you can send a Vijam or any of the cubic spells like Cubic Karma or Cubic Wave, even Unification, to the grave to pop their graveyard effects. And he has a secondary effect. During the battle phase, you can activate his effect, and it gains attack. It gains 200 attack for each monster in the graveyard with different names. So he can potentially become a pretty big beatstick. And next up for the one-offs. So for the other cubic monsters in this deck, you want to, for the Cubic Kings, you want to run 1 well, let's go by level then. You want to run 1 Garagile, the Cubic King. I've seen people run this at 2, mainly for the 800 burn, if you want to go for game for that. Other than that, he's not really a good card. Then you run 1 Vulcan Dragnia, the Cubic King. He's pretty good. All of them have the effect of their summon. There can be special summon from hand by attributing Vijam. Garagile requires 1 Vijam. He requires 2 Vijam. And when they're summoned that way, you burn your opponent for 800. And they each gain attack. He gains 800. He gains let's see. He gains 1600, so he becomes a pretty good attack monster. And whenever they do battle, they are sent to grave, and he can retrieve up to 2 Vijam. He can retrieve up to 3 if they're in grave, which is pretty good for if he uses his effect. So that's that. And the last card that are in the Kings is Indior Doom Vault, the Cubic Emperor. He's pretty okay. I mean, you don't really want to go for him all that often, but his effect, he requires 3 Vijam, and it inflicts 800 damage to your opponent. And if this card was if this card's put into the grave, I can target up to 3 cubic monsters from my grave and special summon them. You really want to go for Vijam and add 1 cubic card from your deck to your hand. So you can literally add him back to your hand, or search through your deck and get out a different cubic monster. And I'll show you guys that cubic monster here in a bit. Next on are to the beasts. And you run 1 Dark Gonix, the Cubic Beast. Essentially, they're kind of like the Kings, but without the burn effects. And he only gains 1000 attack. And when he destroys and when this card is destroyed by a monster by battle, you can target up to 2 V-Jumps in grave and send this card to grave. And if you do, special summon them. And I can add 1 Blade Garudia from the deck to your hand. Actually, I forgot to go over this. Cubic King Gyroguile can actually search out Vulcan Dragonia from the deck as well. And Vulcan Dragonia can actually search out Indiora. The Dargonic searches out Blade Garudia, which is this guy. He gains 2,000 attack and can search out 3 V-Jump from grave and send this card to grave instead, special summon them, and can search out Buster Grendel. And I run 2 Buster Grendel because this card's pretty good. It can make 3 attacks and it's a 3k beat stick. And has the same effect as Indiora. When this card is sent to grave, you can special summon any number of cubic monsters and add this card back to your hand. There's a pretty cool loop where if this card's sent to grave, you can add this card back to hand, special summon 3 V-Jump again, and then when it's your turn, because this V-Jump can't be destroyed, special summon again, and then swing into more monsters by activating Cubic Wave or Cubic Karma. So this card's a pretty good boss monster in a way. He's a pretty good B tier boss. On to our 2 off cards. We run 2 Summoner Monks because they're limited, they're semi-limited, and because of their effect, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster by pitching a spell and trap. By pitching a spell, literally with Cubics, you want to see most of the time you want to see your spells in grave because of their grave effects. But Summoner Monk's pretty good, and especially for rank 4 plays, along with Duza. Next is our only cards we run at 3, and that is 3 Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. This card is one of the reasons why it's a bit of a weird deck, in a way, in my opinion, because Crimson Nova has the effect that he cannot be affected by card effects, or by monsters' effects that are lower than 3,000. That are lower or equal to 3,000. So that means he can't be affected by any cards that are equal or lower to him. But he can get beat over, and he has a weird effect that I would actually recommend teching in Prime Material Dragon, because his effect is during the end phase, you and your opponent take 3,000 burn damage. But he does have this wicked effect. If you attack a monster, he can make another attack. So it's pretty good. But I would say don't summon him early game, because then you're just gonna lose. I say he's a pretty good mid game win. All right, on to the spells. And please, I'm sorry, but I only have to proxy 1 Raigeki for the field wipes. 1 Reasoning, because you want to use Reasoning to get into your Duzas or anything, and just to send cards to grave. 1 Dark Roll Dealing, again, just to draw a little bit of draw power, same for Reasoning. And also you get to send a card to grave, usually you want to send a spell or something. Monster Gate, again, this is another thing like Reasoning. This just thins out your deck, but it's a little bit risky, but the payoff's pretty good. 1 for 1, just to get your V-Jump. Then Foolish Burial Goods, send spells. Actually, I run 2. I run 2 Foolish Burial Goods. This is just to send any of the cubic spells to grave. Then I run 2 Twin Twisters for back roll removal. Then I run 2 Dark Holes, again, for the extra field wipe if I don't draw into my Raigeki. I'd say this is a pretty good card. And next, we have the 3 ofs. I run 3 Cubic Karmas. Cubic Karma is the essential card that gives your kings and beasts a pretty good power-up, especially even Duza. The way they gain this effect is if this card is, you can target 1 cubic monster except V-John the Cubic Seed, and send any number of V-John the Cubic Seed to the grave from your hand to the deck or to the grave. Then that monster gains 800 attack for each V-Jump in grave. When this card leaves the field, if V-Jump the Cubic Seed is special summoned by effect of a cubic monster, which is usually by a king or beast, you can have your opponent's life points. You can to your graveyard and add one. And when this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it to add one cubic one cubic monster from your deck to your hand. It's a pretty good searcher, and that effect when a VJOM is summoned is crazy. Then we have Cubic Wave. Cubic Wave, you can target one cubic monster you control or one monster your opponent controls, and you can have your opponent's monster's attack, and then your monster gains double that. And when this card is sent to grave, you can banish it in any number of cubic monsters that you have in the grave and place cubic counters equal to the number of monsters on the field. So this more or less just kind of helps lock down your opponent's plays or anything. If they have a potential OTK board on the field, you can just cubic wave them and they can't do anything. And it helps create beat sticks and make Crimson Nova pretty beefy. Both Karma and Wave can get Crimson Nova and Duza to crazy amount of attack points, but they fall victim to Magic Cylinder and Mirror Force. And onto our traps, we run one Solemn Warning to protect our monsters and such. One Cubic Rebirth. This is pretty good for bringing back a monster and stopping the attack. And it places one cubic counter on a monster that attacked. And then we're down to our 3 traps that we run, and we only run Unification of the Cubic Lords. This card just helps fusion someone to get out Crimson Nova, Trinity of the Dark Cubic Lord if you have 3 Crimson Novas in hand, field, or field. And when this card's in grave, you can banish this and summon a lower level cubic monster if a cubic monster on your field has been destroyed. Now onto the extra deck. Our extra deck consists of 1 Crimson Nova, Trinity of the Dark Cubic Lord. Only run 1 because you're only ever going to get out the 1. And he's just a boss monster, that's what he is. And he also has the effect if he attacks a monster, he halves your opponent's life points and he can make another attack. And if you were to take any form of burn damage, the opponent would take double of whatever burn damage they dealt you. So he's a pretty good beefy beater, but he has a problem. Lightsworns now have the capability of getting rid of him with the Twilight Sworn Raikou, because it can just non-target banish, and DDDs can actually beat over him. And he's also kaiju, so just do him in all the time. We run 1 Castel, the Sky Blaster Musketeer, for back row and removal. Dark Rebellion, Xyz Dragon. This is for good early game Xyz play. I've been able to kind of clear field with him as well. And I have to proxy 1 Tornado Dragon, just for backfield removal, and yeah, I haven't play tested this deck with him yet, so that should be fun. So, other than that, this deck is pretty crazy in my opinion, because of all the crazy plays you can do with this deck. It's just bananas, but as far as competitiveness in Link format, I mean, it's pretty good. You don't really need all your extra deck monsters out on the field. The main one now that I think a lot of Cubic players are going to try and go for is Crimson Nova. But again, Lightsworns, DDDs, and all them can relatively get over this, especially Kaijus. But other than that, this deck is pretty good, but it is a little bit janked here. Like I said, you could be losing 1 minute and then somehow miraculously win by drawing into 1 card, or you just downright could be winning and you lose because you draw into the card that you don't need. But other than that, I would recommend playing this deck if you want to try it out. But it's all to your own preference. Everything in here is my preference of playing this deck. I don't know how you guys play it, but how you guys would play it. But yeah, so that was the deck profile. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And hope to see you guys in my next video. The next video may be a little bit different than this. But, yeah. So see you guys in the next video. Anyways, this is Playmaker Agami, signing off.